She thought she'd humiliate me in front of everyone. Friends, neighbors, even her coworkers who barely knew my name. But when she raised that glass and made that announcement, all I heard was the sound of a match hitting gasoline. Everyone laughed, thinking I'd crumble. Instead, I smiled, and that's when everything shifted. Before I dive in, hit subscribe, click like, and drop a comment about the wildest thing someone ever blindsided you with. Now let me tell you what really happened at IT was supposed to be just a quiet Friday dinner. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. Our friend Linda hosted it every year, a potluck for old souls, as she called us. The whole thing smelled like roast chicken, furniture polish, and the cologne of men who still iron their shirts. I'd brought my usual bourbon-glazed ribs, the only thing I could cook without causing fire alarms. My wife, well, then wife, Emily arrived late, breezing in with the energy of someone who wasn't sure she wanted to be there at all. She kissed the air near my cheek, not quite landing. Like affection had become optional, I remember the clatter of dishes, the murmur of polite conversation, the soft jazz playing from the living room speakers. The kind of background noise that makes you think everything is fine even when the ground is already shifting. I sat at the dining table beside a bowl of mashed potatoes, sipping iced tea, listening to Michael and Karen argue about lawn care. Normal, predictable, safe. Then Emily tapped her spoon against her wine glass. She didn't need to speak. Everyone froze instantly. Emily loved an audience. She always had. She smiled wide, her lipstick perfect, her confidence glowing like stage lights. "I want to make a little announcement," she said, glancing around the room. "A relationship update, I guess." People chuckled. Someone whistled. Michael elbowed me like we were in on the joke together. I wasn't. She rested her hand on my shoulder, nails tapping lightly like a warning. "I've decided," she said, "that I need a trial break." A pause. Just some breathing room. Nothing dramatic. Just time to think. The room went still. One woman gasped. Someone at the far end whispered, "Oh my God." Emily wasn't done. "I want to take a month, just 30 days, to be on my own, to get clarity. And I hope," she squeezed my shoulder, "that Mark supports me in this." Mark. That was me. And suddenly my name felt like I was hearing it from underwater. People stared, some sympathetic, some morbidly entertained, others just embarrassed for me. I could practically feel their thoughts. Poor guy? Didn't see it coming. She must be leaving him. One man even reached for the bottle of wine as if the moment demanded alcohol. My chest tightened, but I didn't say a word. Not yet, because here's the thing. Emily expected me to react a certain way. She expected shock, anger, begging, maybe a desperate speech about our love, our marriage, our shared life. She'd orchestrated the attention, rehearsed her tone, waited for the exact moment when all eyes were on her. She wanted control, dominance, a public victory. I could see it in the slight tilt of her chin, the proud lift of her eyebrow. And for a second, just a second, I almost gave her exactly what she expected, but then something inside me settled. Not anger, not grief, something colder, calmer, sharper. A thought so clear it cut through the noise. If she wanted a stage, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I lifted my glass slowly, steady hands, calm expression. Everyone waited for me to fall apart. "Sure," I said. Just one word. A few people blinked, confused. Emily's smile faltered. She wasn't expecting calm. She wasn't expecting acceptance. She certainly wasn't expecting composure. "Sure," she repeated, louder, as if she'd misheard. I nodded once. "If that's what you need." The room reacted like a gust of wind had blown through. Looks exchanged, whispers forming, someone coughing as if trying to break tension that suddenly felt carved from stone. Emily looked surprised. No, off balance. She searched my face for cracks, for devastation, for desperation. I gave her none. And in that moment, while everyone waited to see what ridiculous twist would come next, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Not forced, Not grabbed, not manipulated. Just reclaimed. That I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands, and stared at her calmly while the silence stretched. That silence told me more than any argument ever had. She wanted a break? Fine. But I already knew something she didn't. She had absolutely no idea what I'd do with it. She laughed in my face when she did it. That was the part that burned. Not the words, not the announcement, the laugh. "Let's pause us," she said, clinking her wine glass like she'd just made a clever joke. Everyone at the table chuckled, thinking she was being cute. They thought I was the timid husband who'd nod along, swallow it, pretend it was fine. But I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't even blink. And that was the moment, though she didn't know it yet, when everything shifted. Before I get into what happened, hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment. It helps keep stories like this alive. Now let me take you back to the night it started. It was a Friday dinner at our friend's place, Mark and Allison. Cozy backyard, fairy lights, chicken on the grill, that casual suburban vibe where everyone tries to look happier than they are. I was standing by the fire pit, listening to Mark talk about fishing trips we never seemed to take anymore, when she, my wife, Emily, called out across the table, "Daniel, honey, come here. I want to tell them what we talked about." My first thought was, what did we talk about? She'd barely spoken to me all week, too busy with her new team-building events at work. That I walked over, wiping my hands on my jeans. Her smile was too wide, too bright, the kind of smile she used when she wanted attention. "So," she said, placing her hand dramatically on my arm, "I told Daniel we should hit pause on our marriage for a little while. Just a little reset." The whole table went quiet for 2 seconds. Then Allison nervously giggled, and Mark followed, thinking it was some kind of joke between spouses. But Emily wasn't joking. She took a long sip of wine and added, "I mean, everyone deserves some freedom, right? Space. We've been together for 10 years. Maybe taking a breath could help us figure out what we really want." Allison looked at her plate. Mark cleared his throat. No one knew how to handle the tension that suddenly crackled between us. That I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even surprised. Emily had been drifting for months. New clothes, new perfume, sudden late nights, finalizing presentations. I saw the signs. I just didn't expect her to announce a break at someone else's dinner table like it was a party trick. She waited for me to defend myself, to beg, to say something emotional and messy that would make her feel powerful. Instead, I pulled out a chair, sat down calmly, and said, "If that's what you want, Emily, then that's what you'll get." She blinked. Once, twice. That wasn't the response she'd prepared for. She was ready to soothe my anger, mock my confusion, twist my hurt. She wasn't ready for nothing. Mark tried to lighten the mood. You guys are serious?" Emily laughed again, but this time it wobbled. "It's just temporary, like a relationship detox." She shot me a sideways look, searching for something in my expression. She found nothing. Dinner limped along after that. People talked, but not really. Everyone's eyes kept darting toward us. I cut my steak into small pieces, quietly. Emily kept trying to pull me into small talk, pretending everything was fine, but her smile kept slipping. When dessert came out, she leaned in and whispered sharply, "You're acting weird." I kept my voice low. "I'm acting respectful of your choice." She opened her mouth to argue, but Mark interrupted with pie, and the moment passed. When we finally left and got into the car, she slammed the door harder than necessary. "You embarrassed me," she snapped. "By agreeing with you?" I asked. She stared at me, confused and irritated, as if the script in her head wasn't matching the performance in front of her. The drive home was silent. The thick, brittle silence where both people know something is cracked, but no one reaches out to fix it. Inside the house, she tossed her purse on the counter and muttered, "I'm taking the guest room tonight. I need to think." "Take all the time you need," I said, hanging up my jacket. She stopped halfway up the stairs. "Why are you being so calm?" "Because," I said, meeting her eyes, You wanted space. And I'm giving it to you." She didn't move for a full 3 seconds. Then she turned and disappeared into the hallway. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly and let the quiet settle around me. The kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years, that I wasn't hurt, that I wasn't panicked, that I wasn't pleading for her attention. No, I was observing, listening, taking mental notes. Because if Emily wanted a pause, I was going to let her have one, and I wasn't going to waste a single second of it. That night, while the house was still and she was pretending to think, I poured myself a whiskey, sat at the kitchen island, and looked around the home we'd built together. For the first time, it didn't feel like our home. It felt like mine, and the quiet truth settled over me like a blanket. Something was coming, something big, something she would never see coming. Emily came home late again, but this time she didn't announce herself. I heard the door open, then a long pause before her footsteps moved slowly through the hallway. I stayed on the couch, reading, not pretending to read, actually reading. Something I hadn't done in ages, because she always needed attention the moment she walked in. When she appeared in the doorway, she looked unsettled. Hair slightly messy, eyes tired, blazer draped over her arm like she'd been carrying it instead of wearing it for hours. "You're still up," she said. "I live here," I replied without looking up from the page. She took a few steps toward me, hesitating like she was entering the room of a stranger. "We said we were going to talk tonight." "You said that," I corrected. "And you didn't come home." Her jaw tensed. "Well, I'm here now." I closed the book carefully and set it on the coffee table. "Okay, talk." She blinked. "Just like that." I nodded. She sat across from me, not beside me, and the space between us felt bigger than it ever had. "I think we're going through a rough patch," she began, her voice gentle, rehearsed. "Work's been overwhelming, and I've been questioning things, but I don't want this to turn into something dramatic." "You made it dramatic," I said, "by announcing a marriage pause in front of our friends." "I was nervous," she said quickly. "I didn't know how to bring it up privately." "Privately is exactly how you bring up something like that." She looked away, chewing on her lip. "I just needed time. I felt stuck." "So take time," I said. "I'm not stopping you." Her eyes snapped back to mine. "Why are you being so cold?" "I'm not being cold," I said calmly. "I'm being clear." She stared at me for a long moment, like she was searching for the man she thought she controlled. But he wasn't there anymore. Eventually, she stood up abruptly. "I'm going to bed." "Guest room?" I asked. She froze, then nodded stiffly and walked away. After she left, I leaned back into the couch. I wasn't angry. I was done being angry. I was just watching things unfold, piece by piece, like a puzzle she didn't know how to solve. Over the next few days, something in her started to crack. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was small things. She hovered in doorways more often. She lingered near me as if waiting for an invitation that never came. She texted me during the day, "How is work? Did you eat lunch? What are you doing tonight?" I responded politely, but distantly. One-word answers. Enough to acknowledge her, but nothing beyond that. And it drove her crazy. On Wednesday night, she cornered me in the kitchen. "Are you punishing me?" "For what?" I asked, rinsing my plate. "For wanting clarity," she snapped. "For needing to figure out what I want." "Emily," I said evenly, "you asked for space. I'm respecting that." "Respecting," she repeated, her voice rising. "You're acting like you don't even care." "You wanted a pause," I said, "not therapy. You got what you asked for." She stared at me, breathing hard, like she was holding back something bigger. But she didn't say it. Not yet. The breaking point came Friday. She came home early, something she never did. I was in the garage, reorganizing my tools, when she appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. "Again?" I asked, not stopping what I was doing. "Daniel, this isn't funny," she said sharply. "I don't know what's going on with you, but you're scaring me." "How?" She hesitated, caught off guard. "You're distant. You're quiet. You're different." I put down the wrench and finally turned to face her. "Emily, you chose distance. You chose quiet. You chose different. Not like this, she whispered. Not with you shutting me out. I'm not shutting you out, I said calmly. I'm giving you the space you demanded. She looked at me the way someone looks at a door that won't open anymore, even though it used to. Well, she said, swallowing hard. Maybe I've had enough space. Already, I asked lightly. That was fast. Her cheeks flushed. Stop acting like this. Like what? Like you don't need me. I held her gaze. You wanted independence, I said. I'm giving it to you. She stepped closer. Do you even care about this marriage? I care about honesty, I replied. Do you? She opened her mouth, and something flickered in her eyes. Guilt. Real guilt. Not the manipulative, performative kind she'd used for years. She took a breath, steadying herself. Daniel, she said quietly, I think I messed things up. Her voice had that tremble she used when she needed sympathy. But I didn't move, didn't reach out, didn't soften. For the first time in years, I didn't shrink. Then fix it, I said simply. Tell the truth. She froze, like the words had hit a nerve. What truth? But we both knew there was something she wasn't saying. Something she didn't want to admit. That pause she wanted wasn't about clarity. It wasn't about breathing room. It wasn't about figuring out what she wanted. It was about something, or someone, else entirely. And the more I held my ground, the more the cracks started to widen. That night, something in the house felt different. Not just the tension. There was something else, something almost nervous in the way Emily moved around me. She kept appearing in rooms I was in, pretending to look for something, pretending to tidy, pretending to check her phone. All pretending. I could feel it. She was waiting for me to break the silence, to offer comfort, to ask her what was wrong. But I didn't. I cooked dinner for myself, ate alone at the counter, washed my plate, and went to the living room. She hovered in the kitchen doorway like a shadow that didn't know where to settle. Finally, she said, Can we sit down? I didn't look up from the woodworking magazine I was flipping through. We're sitting now. She stepped closer, frustration tightening every word. I need you to take this seriously. I am, I said calmly. You asked for space. I'm giving it to you. Why do you keep saying that? She snapped. Because it's the truth. She wrapped her arms around herself. I feel like you're slipping away. I'm right here, I said. You just don't like the way it feels when I'm not orbiting around you. Her face twisted, not in anger, but in something closer to fear. Real fear. Daniel, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I think there's been several, I replied. She hesitated, searching for words. Look, I didn't mean a break. I just meant I needed time to think. That's all. And now you've thought. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. Yes. And I think we should try again. You know. Reset. Start fresh. Interesting, I said. What changed? She blinked hard. What do you mean? 2 days ago, you wanted space. Now you want closeness. Something flipped that switch. What was it? You're being paranoid, she said, though her eyes darted away. I'm being observant, I corrected. Her breathing quickened. Daniel, please don't turn this into something bigger than it is. Then tell me the truth, I said evenly. Why did you really want that pause? She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. Whatever explanation she'd prepared, she couldn't deliver it. Not convincingly. Not now that she'd realized I wasn't falling back into old patterns. This is ridiculous, she muttered, grabbing her phone. I'm going for a walk. Take your space, I said, returning to my magazine. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. But even the slam sounded weak. Hollow. 30 minutes later she came back, face flushed, eyes glassy. Not crying, panicked. Daniel, she said breathlessly, we need to talk now. We've been talking. No, she said, shaking her head. I mean it. We really need to talk. Okay, I said, setting down the magazine. Talk. She paced the living room like someone preparing to confess a crime. I just feel like everything's getting twisted. I wanted to pause because I was overwhelmed, not because there's someone else. I hadn't mentioned anyone else. Not once. She realized her mistake at the same second I did. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted. Then she looked down, cursing herself under her breath. Emily, I said quietly, who is he? Her shoulders slumped, as if the question pulled the last bit of resistance out of her. For a moment, she didn't speak, didn't breathe. Then she whispered, it's not what you think. Then say what it is. There's no affair, she said quickly. Too quickly. We've just been talking. That's all. It's not. Who is he? I repeated. She sat on the arm of the couch, burying her face in her hands. His name is Tyler. Tyler, the new manager at her job. The one she'd mentioned casually months ago. The one she said was nothing like her old boss. The one who'd been helping her transition into bigger responsibilities. I let the name settle in the room like dust. And this talking, I said slowly. Was this before or after the pause? Silence. She didn't answer because the answer was obvious. Emily, I said, you didn't want clarity. You wanted permission. No, she said suddenly, looking up with wild eyes. It wasn't like that. I swear. I just needed breathing room. Room for what? I asked. To decide if you want him instead of me. No, she cried. I wasn't choosing him. I was choosing myself. Then why hide him? She choked on the answer, unable to say it. I watched her, not with rage, but with a strange calm certainty that surprised even me. For years, she'd shaped reality to fit her narrative. For years, she'd twisted conversations until I doubted my own memory. But not now. Not anymore. She finally whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. No, I said gently. You didn't want to look like the bad guy. She flinched. Hard. It was the truth she didn't want to face. She sat back down, wiping her eyes. I made a mistake, she said quietly. I see that now. And what do you want from me? I asked. She looked at me like she was drowning. I want another chance. To do what? She swallowed hard. To fix this. To fix us. And Tyler? I asked. She shook her head. There's nothing to fix there. I'll cut it off. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't give up on us. The desperation in her voice wasn't flattering. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even sad. It was revealing. She wasn't fighting for love. She was fighting for control. But the moment she said his name out loud, everything shifted inside me. She didn't know it. But I did. The ground had changed. And whatever she was hoping to save, whatever fantasies she had about repairing things, she had no idea what was coming next. I didn't answer her right away. I just sat there, letting the silence stretch between us until it filled the whole room. Emily shifted, fidgeted, wiped at her face again like she could smear away the truth she'd let slip. Daniel, she whispered, please say something. What do you want me to say? I asked calmly. Say we can fix this. Say you're willing to try. Say you're not walking away. She looked desperate in a way I'd never seen before, almost like a child begging not to be left alone in the dark. For years, that look would have undone me. For years, I would have bent myself backward to reassure her. But something inside me had changed. Not suddenly, not violently, slowly, quietly, over days of space she had asked for and assumed she controlled. I stood from the chair, walked to the window, and watched the street for a moment. My reflection stared back, someone I hadn't really seen in a long time. Someone strong, someone steady, someone free. I'm not staying in a marriage that needs a pause to test its stability, I said finally. She inhaled sharply. So that's it. You're throwing everything away because I got confused. You didn't get confused, I replied. You got caught. She staggered back like the words hit her physically. Daniel, I swear, nothing happened between us. Nothing physical. But emotional, I said. Enough to ask your husband for a break, at a dinner party, to see if you liked how life felt without me. She didn't deny it. That was the first honest thing she'd done all week. Daniel, I told you I'd cut everything off. I'll block his number. I'll switch teams at work. I'll do whatever you need. What I need, I said slowly, is to breathe without permission. Her expression crumpled. So you're leaving me? No, I said. I'm letting you leave me. Which is what you started the moment you chose him. She shook her head fiercely. He meant nothing. I don't want him. I want us. No, I said. You want the version of me who tiptoed around your moods, who begged for attention, who apologized for wanting a life. That man is gone. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Don't do this. But I already had. I walked to the desk drawer, pulled out the folder I'd prepared days ago, and set it gently on the coffee table. Her eyes widened. What is that? Options, I said. Next steps. A fair plan. She looked at it like it was a live wire. You. When did you? How long have you? Since you asked for space. Her voice came out strangled. You prepared divorce papers while I was still trying to figure things out. You weren't trying to figure anything out, I said calmly. You were easing your way into a future you thought you could choose later. I just got there sooner. She sank onto the couch as if her legs gave out. I didn't think you'd actually let me go. I know, I said softly. That's the problem. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The house was still, too still. Finally, she whispered, if you walk away, I have nothing. Then maybe, I said gently, this is your chance to figure out who you are when you're not defining yourself by someone else. She wiped her eyes. Do you love me at all? I took a breath. Yes, I said. But love isn't enough when trust is gone. And respect disappeared long before Tyler showed up. She looked down at her hands. Hands that had once felt familiar. Hands I could no longer imagine reaching for mine. After a long, painful silence, she whispered, so what now? Now, I said, you take your things. You go to your sister's for a while. We let the paperwork move forward. We do this cleanly, kindly, without tearing each other apart. She nodded slowly, and for the first time since this began, she didn't argue. She didn't negotiate. She didn't try to twist the narrative. She just accepted it. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe she finally saw that the power she thought she held had dissolved the moment I stopped playing along. She packed her bags the next morning. No theatrics, no shouting, just a quiet, defeated silence that followed her through every room. When she stood at the door, suitcase by her side, she said softly, I really did think you'd wait for me. I know, I said, and that's how I knew I couldn't. She left without looking back. I closed the door gently behind her. The house was quiet, but not empty. For the first time in years, it felt like a place I could live in. Not endure. Not navigate carefully. Live. I walked into the kitchen, made myself coffee, and sat at the table where everything had started weeks ago. Same room. Same man. Different life. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed. Fully. Freely. And it felt good. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Heard about everything. You okay? I typed back, I am. Really. I wasn't pretending. Not anymore. I stepped outside, felt the sunlight on my face, and realized something simple and powerful. She had asked for a pause to find herself. I had used the pause to find myself too. And once I found that man again, there was no going back. If you made it to the end of this story, hit subscribe, drop a like, and leave a comment. I'll be waiting for you in the next one.